Abby, that's for you. She could take it out. My wife would say the same thing.
Yep.
All right.
Welcome to Truth Be Told.
Good morning. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Truth Be Told. My name is Max. I'm here with Dwight, and we're getting into some nitty-gritty stuff today, and we're talking about rules and regulations, or just living the life. What does it mean? What does it mean, and what is the difference, and what are we actually called to do?
Yeah, great topic, great suggestion there, Max. We think about that rules, and you know what? A lot of my Christianity, a lot of what I would call Christianity, and I go back to saying that because the word Christianity is so misconstrued today. So when I think about that, and I go back to my childhood, and I go back to what I was hearing, what I was thinking, and not necessarily were people implying rules, but that's what it seemed like then. And in that early part of Christianity, I thought about that, and I go, how can I keep all of these rules that seem to be out there? And the Older Testament, we talk about the 10 rules, if we would, the 10 commandments. And in those 10 commandments, we break down, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not, and we go on with that. But in the Older Testament, there are 604 of these kind of rules.
Yeah.
And we go, wow. But those rules really bring freedom if we don't see them as rules, because rules are do's and don'ts. If I do this, if I do that, and we seem to be restricted in that. And yet this life of faith, this life of following Jesus said, the Son shall set you free. And not only is he talking about setting us free from the things that destroy us from within, but to be able to actually live this life with freedom. If the Son shall set you free, you're free indeed. And so as we get into this and think about the difference between rules and freedom, and what does that make? So,
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things I was discussing with a couple other friends growing up for myself is like, we didn't really, we had rules and it felt like regulations, but it's like, this is the way you do things. This is the way you need to be a good Christian in a box.
Right.
They didn't say it in a box, but at a men's conference last year, met a guy, and he's kind of like, how do we get outside of that box? We can put ourselves into that box. Society can put us in that box and just label it, oh, you're a Christian, you're this, you're that, whatever. And it can be outside of that too, and we can put a label on ourselves. But then we're limiting it to that versus looking at the heart and what does Jesus see?
Yeah.
He looks inside and sees the heart. So it's more important about the heart change versus just doing stuff to earn our salvation or earn our way to heaven, which I think we all fallen into that at some point. But
that's great. Actually, we talk about this freedom in Christ, and Christ talks about that love. And if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Yeah. And then he goes on to say, and they're not grievous to you. They're not burdensome. They're not something that you're going, okay, today I can't steal. Yeah. Today I can't lie. Today I can't do this. Yeah. But it's much more than that. Like if you're doing the rules and you're doing that, it's kind of like in my marriage. If I put up this set of rules, today I got to love my wife. Today I've got to do this and this and this. The joy goes out of it, the pleasure. But if I look at it this way, today I get to love my wife. Yeah. Today I get to tell her that I love her. Today I get to do something for her. Yeah. Today I get just to be creative in that. And so when we start thinking about this freedom in Christ, and he's, when Christ is talking about that, and we're listening to him, so he's saying today you get to love your neighbor, and you go, oh, wait a minute, what does that look like to love my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Well, Jesus talks about that. And we'll get to that in one of our podcasts in one of the series coming on, where Jesus talks about this guy that referred to as the Good Samaritan, that the guy he was talking to wouldn't even say that. He would just said the man that. And so, but Jesus, how do I love my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? And we begin to see our neighbor as being everybody that we meet. In that, and we begin to love them. And so how do I love them? Well, what do they need? And we can't meet all of the needs of everybody. And we can't meet all of the expectations. A lot of people out there that'll have unmet expectations, and so they're down on you because of that. But when we're living this rules, and we move past the rules to the freedom in Christ, and then we have the Spirit of God, the Spirit of Jesus living inside of us. And as He lives inside of us, Jesus said in one place, He didn't come, He fulfilled the Scriptures, every jot and every tittle, but He didn't come just to do that. He came and He begins to go, where is God at work around me? Right? And He didn't try to do everything. He didn't perform every miracle. He didn't go to every town and every village, and He didn't talk to every person. He began to watch. And He began to watch where the Father was at work. And He said, Father, I'll join you wherever you're at work, because that's the place that today you're going to use me. That's the person that you're working in their heart. And so when you move from rules, okay, today, I got to try to share Jesus with 50 people. Today, I've got to do 55 good, I got to help 55 people. And when you move away from that, where is God at work today, and how do I join Him? How do I surrender myself and say, God? And you watch that in the life of Jesus. And there's incredible freedom in that you know what, I had a phone call from my friend Scott, and we're talking, and we go back to when I first met him, and then and I go, wow, that was so refreshing. There was freedom in that, right? And so this part of it,
100%. When you love someone, coming back to the 10 Commandments, so much of society and whether they're in faith, outside of faith, we just look at it as a negative, straight up.
Yes.
Instead, and it's like it's restricting without really looking at, okay, what would a society look like if we did these things? If we all did these things, we all loved one another. Well, if you love somebody, you're not going to steal from them. You're not going to murder them. You're not going to sleep with their wife or husband.
Yes, exactly.
So what would a society look like if we actually lived by that? Without saying I have to, but just saying I get to love that person. It would change everything. I mean, that's really what we all crave inside, deep down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Max. And you think about that, and who doesn't want to bring up their children in a society where that is actually lived out, in a community where that is lived out, right? And
exactly. I don't have kids, but I have friends that have kids, and they're like scratching their head, like, what am I gonna like? They're like, how do I raise my kid so that they turn out to be good, decent adults, in this world where there's a lot of other just pressures and information constantly bombarding them that is not necessarily all good.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're talking about that, but this liberty and
freedom.
And so the word says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. And I don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, God, what do I have to do for you today? What is it? But that liberty and when you start looking through the day, when you look at people and if we look at them as interruptions, we've got certain things we've got to get done, and
then
so
I have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But if we start seeing, okay, what is God doing in that person? Where is God bringing that person? And I may only play a small part in that. My conversation might be a small thing in that. My word of encouragement might be a small thing in that. But what is God doing in the midst of that?
Exactly. We don't know if we're planting a seed. We don't know if we're watering that plant. But it's kind of irrelevant. But it's a matter of just listening. Okay, God, where am I at? And what role do you have me play in this person's life today at this moment? And just doing that.
Yeah, and I think about that, and the Son shall set you free, and and when I think back over my life of following Jesus, getting to know Him, and you know what, I swore like a trucker, and and I told filthy stories like a trucker, and because I was one, but I never tried to stop that. It was God setting me free from that. But it was just more than that, like the desire. I was in business for a number of years, and I always thought, how can I help somebody else's business? How can I help my brothers prosper? How can I help somebody else's business prosper in that? And once I became a believer, before that, I thought, it's got to be all about me. It's all got to be about my business and my ego and all of that. But when I started, Jesus gives us freedom that says, what? If I can help your business prosper and I gain from that, that's great. If I don't gain, I've still done something that's right.
Yeah.
And
you've built a bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Of anything.
And there's freedom in that, right?
Yeah.
When you live that self-centered life, then there's not a lot of freedom within that.
Yeah.
But this following Jesus, and it's an everyday thing. We go back to that, Max, and it's not perfection; it's progression.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think of some of our business where it's like, well, they're doing it, so we can do that too, but it just lowers the bar, and it's like you're still playing within the rules, but you're not really doing it out of the reason you're doing business. If you want to do it for a higher standard reason, set the bar higher for yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that part of rules versus freedom, as our friend Kelsey would talk about, reading and looking at the life of Jesus, right? And you see this. He doesn't live a life of rules. It's a life of freedom that he lives.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and we're going to look at that in a future episode. So, thanks for joining us today, and we will see you in the next one. God bless.